In this video, I'm going to teach you how to write a love story, one that will make the reader cry. And I've been prompted to try this because of a number of emails I've been receiving from people expressing admiration for the achievement of Prince Harry and his latest book. They say to me, "Oh, we'd love to write a book like that, but what chance do we stand? We're not darlings of the gods. We weren't born in a marble palace." I said, friends, don't worry, because the techniques I can teach you are just as useful whether you happen to be a prince or a pauper. So we will be looking at Prince Harry's book and also considering the fate of fair Rosamund de Clifford, who was the wife of King Henry II. And we will also consider the medieval position in the royal household of the groom of the stool, which was the chap whose job it was to help the king wipe his bottom. So welcome to another instalment in my series on how to write your novel using that most unlikely of writing implements, a round Oxford bus ticket. We will start by taking bus number 6 to Port Meadow, and then we will wander along to these ruins, Godstow Priory, which is a 12th century Benedictine nunnery, and now it houses the last mortal remains of Rosamund de Clifford, who was the mistress of King Henry II. And Rosamund and Prince Harry give us the sort of first ingredient in our formula for how to write a tearjerker, namely the impediment to love. With Prince Harry, the impediment was a paparazzi. No sooner did he meet a girl in his teenage years and kiss her than the next day 1,000 photographers would turn up outside her house and ruin everything. With Rosamund, the impediment was even more forbidding. It was King Henry's wife. Rumour has it that it was King Henry's wife who banished her to the nunnery, and some say even poisoned her. Now, King Henry was famous for pioneering the role of the groom of the stool, which I alluded to earlier. And this is important because nowadays when you tell people about this, they sort of snigger and make facetious remarks. But back in the Middle Ages, it was a highly coveted position, highly respected position. And this is because in those times, people were free of the modern vice of cynicism. And I think we should seek to emulate them, because you can't write a love story if you're a cynic. Now, the whole point of a love story is to make the reader cry. And this is because stories, as I've said before, are emotion delivery machines. I can't emphasize this enough. And it seems to me that when examining love stories, they all seem to have one thing in common, or most of them do. Namely, they seem to embody some sort of metaphysical crime. To see what I mean, consider Wuthering Heights. I mean, it's on everybody's top 10 list of great love stories, isn't it? There's not much love in it, is there? It's mostly pain and bitterness and revenge and tragedy and cruelty. I mean, if a visitor from Jupiter arrived and saw the movie, do you think he would even know it was a love story? Well, we'll consider the answer to that after this short commercial break. Imagine writing a novel so good even the Virgin Mary reads it. Well, that would be something, wouldn't it? But you think, what chance do I have to get published? I wasn't born in a marble palace. Ah, friend, don't despair. Download Gateway to Narnia, my free 10-part e-course on how to write your first novel. It will tell you everything you need to know to turn your dream into a book. Click on the link in the description below and start dreaming big. Wuthering Heights. Well, the reason I think that we think it is a love story is we sense on a deep level that Cathy and Heathcliff, the lovers, were meant to be. And that if fate intervenes and thwarts their attempts to form a union, this represents some sort of crime against the order, a metaphysical crime. And I get the same feeling from Romeo and Juliet, because when Lady Capulet tells Juliet that she's going to be married off to Paris, we, the reader, recoil in horror, don't we? We go, no, Juliet is meant for Romeo. So this gives us the beginnings of the formula, doesn't it? We conjure up two lovers who are meant to be, and then we do everything we can to stop them getting together. And the audience, of course, will be rooting for them, urging them on. And so we torment the audience like a schoolboy pulling the legs off a spider. So the lovers can get together at the end and have a happy ending, or they can be sundered and we have an unhappy ending. And either way, the readers get a good cry. Now you might ask, how do we know that they are meant for each other? And the short answer is, I've no idea. It's just that we do, don't we? We sense it on a deep level. I mean, when in Casablanca, when Ingrid Bergman turns up, we just know that she and Humphrey Bogart were the ones who were meant to be. And if we didn't sense it, love stories wouldn't really work, would they? Now, there's no end of impediments we can throw into the paths of the lovers. They can be divided by social barriers like class, or by geography, or by the law. I mean, Romeo was wanted for murder, wasn't he? Or they could fall in love on a ship which hits an iceberg, and their love could be sundered by death. And then our task is to dial up the agony, make the reader's torment intense. And we do that by adding various ingredients into the mix, like injustice, or undeserved misfortune, or nobility misprized, things like that. I mean, take Far From the Madding Crowd, for example. We established right from the start there that the two lovers, Bathsheba and Gabriel Oak, are the ones meant to be. So Thomas Hardy screws it up for them, doesn't he? He starts with undeserved misfortune. A demented sheepdog chases Gabriel Oak's flock of sheep over the cliff's edge to their death. Well, that's his fortune gone. Now he stands no chance of winning the hand of Bathsheba. And then we add injustice. We'll get her to fall in love with the dickhead Sergeant Troy. And everybody knows, everyone can see that he is totally unsuited for her. He will break her heart, but Bathsheba can't see it. And poor old Gabriel Oak has to watch it in misery. And we'll make him noble as well, because that accentuates it. He's the man who single-handedly saves the crops in the storm. He's the man who knows how to pierce the bellies of the distended bellies of the sheep after they eat clover. He's a noble man, a man's man. And it doesn't do him a blind bit of good, does it? Another way to sunder the lovers is noble sacrifice. In Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart has finally been reunited with the woman he loves, but he chooses not to be with her, to go and fight the Nazis instead, which is a very noble undertaking, but it breaks our heart, doesn't it? Or they could be sundered similarly on the ship. When the Titanic goes down and Jack is in the water, he lets Rose survive on the floating door, another noble sacrifice. Although there are some people who think there was more than enough room on that door for two people. But if you really want to break the reader's heart, you need to use the king of heartbreaking tropes, the misdirected letter. And the best example of this for me is Manon des Sorts. And spoiler alert, I'm going to discuss the ending. But the whole story is a litany of pain and brutal suffering and cruelty and torture, all orchestrated by César, because years ago his life was embittered when the woman he loved betrayed him. Then at the end we get the hammer blow. She didn't betray him. The crucial letter went astray. So why do these stories move us so deeply? I think there's something very profound going on here. Kurt Vonnegut said, all literature ultimately is about what a bummer it is to be a human being. I mean, it's funny, but it's only half the truth. The other half was supplied for me, I think, by the Russian novelist Nabokov when asked if anything still had the capacity to amaze him. And he said, "Yes, the marvel of consciousness, that sudden window swinging open on a sunlit landscape amidst the night of non-being." This for me is what it's about, the night of non-being. We wake up temporarily and experience the bewildering, mystical, magical thing called life. What is it? What does it all mean? We have no idea, and when we finally gather together a few meagre scraps of comprehension, we hear the great referee in the sky blowing his whistle. It's all over. And we realize with overwhelming poignancy that our life was really only available to us on loan, like a library book. And there is no sequel. And I think these love stories remind us on a very deep level of this appalling truth. You only get one life, one go on the merry-go-round, and imagine you meet your soulmate, the person that fate intended you to be together with, and you manage to be together for that one life, Well, that's marvellous, isn't it? But what if you don't? What if you meet her and you can't be with her or him? What if fate sunders you and you spend your own life apart? I mean, it wouldn't matter, would it, if we had a series of lives, but we only get one. And I think this is what touches us. We cry, not just for the characters and their fate, but for ourselves. What do you think?